You're watching the Randy and Christa show. I'm Randy Alvarez.
And I'm Christa Orecchio, and this is news that makes you healthier. Today we have a very hot topic, weight loss resistance, how to heal a broken or damaged metabolism. And I know you love talking about this, Randy.
Yeah.
So we have a good friend of mine, Dr. Jade Teta. He's an integrative physician, and he's also the author of the Metabolic Effect Diet.
Okay,
so
good.
Let's welcome Jade to the show. Thanks for being here, Jade.
Thanks so much, guys. Good to see you both.
So for people that don't know you, and I guess we met many years ago, about 10 years ago, at a healthy aging conference or something like that. But tell us a little bit about your practice, because nowadays I guess you meet most of your patients virtually.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I started out as a personal trainer back when I was 15 years old and spent 20 years in the personal training industry in the trenches of weight loss. Then I decided to go to medical school, and when I looked at the offerings at medical school and looked at the curriculum, I saw something that shocked me, and that was that there was no nutrition education and no exercise education in the curriculum in medical school. So I decided to take a little bit of a different route and go to naturopathic medical school, one of 5 schools in the country that train primary care physicians in alternative and complementary medicine. And I started in a clinic where I was seeing people sort of face-to-face, and I still kept personal training as well, but now I've sort of graduated to an online format, and believe it or not, I find that I get better results that way because I can stay with my clients through email, through virtual videos, things like Skype, and it works really well.
So Jade, for our viewers at home, how does somebody know if their metabolism is damaged or not working or out of balance? What are the telltale signs?
Yeah, it's a really great question because when we think about weight loss, right, most people are thinking about counting calories. But when you are really looking to see how your metabolism is impacting you, you really have to count hormones instead. And so you might say, Jade, what do you mean count hormones? Well, your body is constantly giving you biofeedback every second of the day. Things like how hungry you are, whether or not you have cravings or not, and how predictable and sustainable your energy is. And so there are 2 things required for weight loss: a calorie deficit and hormonal balance. You know if your metabolism is imbalanced if you're hungry all the time, you're suffering cravings all the time, and your energy levels are unpredictable and unsustainable. Something that I call HEC, H-E-C, which stands for hunger, energy, and cravings. If your HEC is out of check, you know your metabolism is not balanced. And that's how you know. So many people who are dieting are fighting this constantly, right? We all know that. So those of you who are dieting out there listening to this, you're probably saying, yeah, Jade, I get it. Hunger, energy, and cravings. I'm always feeling those things. That's how you know you're on the wrong track, not the right track. And we really need to fix that first.
Have you ever had a weight problem?
I have, actually. I have. I come from a big Italian family. I'm a big pasta lover, and I can easily overeat. You know, in Italian families, food is love. And so for me, I really struggled with that sort of early on. I was able to overcome that.
I hear you. I'm 100% Italian, and my dad says
Yeah,
food is love all the time.
Drill, right?
So tell me, so is your approach like, because you say it's not just counting calories or exercise more, are you low carb? Are you like zone style diet? Is it a combination of, tell me your approach and philosophy.
Yeah,
like if somebody
Randy,
comes to you, they're maybe, let's go with the older crowd, 35, 40 years old. They can't lose weight the way they used to. They're not sleeping very well. They've gained 30 pounds. It's snuck up on them. What is your approach, if you had to say?
Yeah. My approach is really interesting because when you look out in the diet world, everyone is sort of looking to find the perfect diet, right? And so they ask me too. There's like, Jade, do you have the perfect diet that you can hand me? And the truth of the matter is you don't find the perfect diet. You create the perfect diet for yourself. And so what I do and my approach is helping people find and create the perfect diet for them by understanding their metabolism, by understanding their unique psychology, and by appreciating their personal preferences. So what I do is design a program around your metabolism, around your psychological sensitivities and your personal preferences. So it's not necessarily low carb. For some, that might be what works for them. But for others, it may be a more vegetarian-based diet that's higher in fruits and vegetables and a little bit lower in protein. So it really depends. And for me, being all over the map in my younger years in terms of diets that I would recommend to my patients and my personal training clients. This is the only way I have found that it works. Individualized weight loss, not one size fits all solutions.
Do you believe that some people just hold on to fat better than others?
Absolutely, I do. And I think we need to make allowance for that. There are individuals who gain weight easier and lose fat more in a more difficult fashion than others. They're just naturally lean individuals due to genetics and due to metabolic differences. There's also people like myself, like we talked about, me and Christa coming from the Italian background. My personal preference, my psychology around food is very much about socializing and eating and all those kinds of things. And that stuff impacts this. So it's not just about diet and exercise, it's also about lifestyle and mindset. And we have to take into account all these things when we approach weight loss.
I agree. That's a completely holistic approach to it. It's not just about the food. And I love that you have a bio-individuality approach to this whole thing. I have a question for you about,
Sure.
Metabolic devastation is a big buzzword these days, and it goes hand in hand with adrenal fatigue. And so tell me your thoughts, because I know that I see this a lot in my practice.
Yeah. So when we talk about metabolic damage, well, let's go back to what I said before about there's two things required for weight loss. You need to have a calorie deficit and you need to have hormonal balance. And what's interesting about the calorie approach, what most people do is they just take a calorie approach by eating less and exercising more. We all know what that's like. Well, that can easily give you the calorie deficit, but it makes your hormonal system unbalanced, what I call metabolic compensation. And actually in the research, this is one of the most non-controversial aspects of weight loss research. It's actually called adaptive thermogenesis. I call it the law of metabolic compensation. And what happens is, everyone knows, by the way, what this feels like, right? You go on a diet 7 to 10 days in, all of a sudden you're doing great. Maybe you lost some weight, but all of a sudden you start getting hungry, you have cravings, and your metabolism slows down. That's stage one of metabolic damage. And here's the mistake most people make is they say it's alluring, right? Because it's like, well, I got a little bit of results, so maybe I just have to work harder at the eat less, exercise more model. And so they double down on eat less, exercise more. And as they keep pushing on the metabolism, here's what's interesting. The metabolism is not like a calculator, and it's actually not like a chemistry lab either. It's more like a thermostat. When you push hard against it, it will push back against you harder. So when you keep pushing, now you get into metabolic resistance and weight loss resistance. Those of you who do everything so-called right and aren't losing weight, you're in metabolic resistance. And if you keep pushing over and harder and exercising more and trying to eat less, pretty soon, for lack of a better term, you are going to break your metabolism. And at this point, weight loss is the least of your concerns because you're going to have chronic fatigue. Maybe you're going to get diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis or a thyroid condition, adrenal fatigue, all these types of things. And now weight loss is the least of your concerns. But understand, the metabolism is intelligent. If you push against it too hard, it will push back against you.
So then what is the answer then?
The answer.
So can't lose weight the way they used to.
That's right.
They've got a problem.
Well, yo-yo dieting
right.
doesn't
Are
work.
one of the things, because you mentioned intermittent fasting.
Yeah, well,
Is that one of the ways you do it?
No, I would say that intermittent fasting can work for some, not others. But here's the solution. And actually, this will make sense based on what I just said. But remember, again, I said you need two things, right, to lose weight. You need a balanced metabolism and a calorie deficit. Eat less, exercise more, gives you the calorie deficit, but makes your metabolism more unbalanced. There's two ways to get the hormonal balance and the calorie deficit. And that is the eat less, exercise less model, which is the way many Europeans eat and live. And actually, by the way our great-grandparents lived as well, or the eat more, exercise more model, which is the way many athletes do it. And so what we need to understand is that you have a choice. Either eat less, exercise less, that will reduce calories and balance the metabolism, or eat more, exercise more, that will reduce calories and balance metabolism, but stay away from this eat less, exercise more model. By the way, here's what I would, go ahead.
No, it's good. But
Yeah.
also, so in addition though, what about protein, carbs, and fats? Are you looking at the ratios there?
Well, absolutely, you need to look at the ratios because what we now know is that protein is the most satiating of the macronutrients. And so if you take an equal amount of carbohydrates versus protein and you sub protein for those carbohydrates, you will control hunger better. You'll have less cravings and your energy will be in better control. Here's an example about this, by the way. I'll give you two foods: a 250 calorie donut, which is the same amount of calories as a 250 calorie chicken breast. A donut and a chicken breast, same amount of calories, but which one is going to control hunger, energy, and cravings better? Which one's going to fill you up faster, keep you full for longer? And by the way, which one's going to lead to you eating more of the right foods later? Everyone knows the answer to that. And that's why you cannot just look at this through the calorie lens.
But isn't it easier said than done? That, okay, so most people know, lean protein, low glycemic vegetables, things like that. But what about the people that are, like you say, they're damaged. They're a mess from chronic dieting their whole lives.
So
do you wean them into this slowly? Is it a cold turkey approach? What is it?
You're absolutely right, Randy, in saying it's easier said than done because, and I'm glad you're bringing this up because you're really astute in this topic. Many people don't know that an obese person's metabolism and an overweight person's metabolism is not reacting the same as a lean person's metabolism. And so it is not just this very easy fix. However, when you start looking at quality of food and quantity and quality of exercise, this is where you have to start. So you do have to some degree, go cold turkey. But when you elevate the amount of protein and fiber and water and control starch, not cut it out altogether, these people do much, much better versus just eating less of any old food. That's when you start getting this metabolic compensation. So yes, it's cold turkey, but it's cold turkey in a very structured way that you're using macronutrients to control hunger, energy, and cravings.
I believe you think, I've looked at your book before. I think you believe that people are going too low carb. Is that true? That could be a problem.
Absolutely. With many people, they are going too low carb. And here's why, right? Think about it. If the three of us, right, we all decided we're going to go on a diet, and those people listening at home, we're going to go on a diet today. Most people wake up on Mondays and they go on a diet. And typically what they're going to do is cut their carbohydrates really low. So they have, maybe some eggs or a protein smoothie in the morning, and then for lunch, they have this big salad with chicken on top. And what happens when they get home for dinner? They do what I call continuous meal, which is they eat a normal healthy dinner and they're craving crazy, and they eat carbohydrates all the way until the end of the night, and not the best carbohydrates either. And so the idea is some people can go very low carb all day and get home and have a normal dinner and go to sleep and not binge. Many people cannot. If you're one of those people who cannot, then going very low carb is probably not going to be the best approach for you. You need to get what I call your carbohydrate tipping point. It's like Goldilocks, not too much, not too little, but just right. And that's part of what we're doing when we work with individuals in this way. You have to find your unique carb tolerance, the amount that keeps you from being hungry, the amount that stabilizes energy, the amount that keeps you from gorging on cheesecake later in the evening. That's an important piece of the puzzle. What you eat in the morning is not independent from what you will end up eating at night. I like to say this, and I think it's useful for your listeners. A low calorie, healthy meal is neither low calorie or healthy if it leads to you binging on cheesecake later. And so we need to look and understand that what we're eating in the hours before our meals makes a difference.
So you lay this style of eating out for your patients, for your clients.
That's absolutely right. And
so you wipe out cravings in many people. That means people that are saying, look, I'd love to do all this stuff, but my cravings are out of control. Do you see that when you eat correctly and find their zone, their individual zone, the cravings go away?
That's one of the most beautiful things about this approach, because absolutely the cravings begin to go away. And not only that, what's interesting about this is that instead of following an off-the-shelf one-size-fits-all protocol that may work for a while and then stop working, what's happening is people are learning a process to decipher their own metabolism that they can use forever. When they get pregnant, when they go through menopause or andropause, when they go through high-stress periods. It's a process, not a protocol. You need to be a detective, not a dieter. And once people start understanding that, they can escape this sort of metabolic damage, weight loss resistance situation that many people are in.
It's like learning how to become your own best doctor and finding out your ratio and Do you think that we need to eat differently at different times? And so let's say you find your carbohydrate tipping point, as you say, and you have, like, I know I feel better if I have a complex carb with breakfast and lunch, and then I can go without it at dinner. But like, as your metabolism improves, do you think people are, they can easily handle just meat and vegetables?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple things happen. What you're speaking to is, does the metabolism change? And yes, it's in constant flux. And not only can they get away with maybe having less carbs, but they also can get away with having a little bit more carbs, right? So in other words, going very low carb once your metabolism begins to heal is not going to result in massive cravings for you once you're healed a little bit. But at the same token, having a little bit of a carbohydrate binge on occasion isn't going to send you in a tailspin either. And so, yes, as the metabolism heals, you can better handle food.
Yeah, Randy and I were just talking about this at lunch.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain trigger foods I definitely have where if I eat like one cookie, I lose control. So I just can't have one cookie or one slice of pizza. And some of my skinny doctor friends, they say, but Randy, moderation. And I'm jealous of those skinny doctor friends because I always feel like they've never had to lose weight a day in their life, right?
That's right.
And a lot of these, I've told Christa this, that it's my jealousy. A lot of these skinny doctors writing best-selling books, and I'm going, they've never had to lose weight before. Some of them have, I think, more understanding than others. But, I like the fact that you had you were overweight at one time and that you face it. So, and I think it's interesting. Now, you're also addressing supplements. You're showing them how exercise, the right kind of nutrition. And what about supplements and hormones, like bioidentical hormones for the 40-plus crowd?
Yes, here's the interesting thing is that when we talk about the number one way to balance your hormones and your metabolism, a lot of people want to get into the fancy supplements and the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And what I've found in my clinical practice is that if you don't do all the things that we were just talking about first, oftentimes this stuff does nothing for you and can make it worse. I mean, you have to understand that supplements should be used just as supplements, just as that. And so some of these, fat burning supplements that everyone gets excited about, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I mean, these things do not provide much of an advantage at all. And they only do so when you do the things that I'm talking about. When the metabolism is balanced, when you're high functioning, then and only then will adding something like green tea extract or, any of these other things you hear about for fat burners, have an effect. And one thing I'll say, Randy, that you brought up that's kind of interesting for everyone, who's sort of listening. There's research in animals that really show exactly what you were saying about yourself, and I suffer from this as well, that basically shows that when you feed animals what is called a cafeteria-based diet, a diet that is rich in salt, fat, and sugar, which is the fast food diet in us humans, what it does is it changes brain chemistry in a way that makes us eat more at that meal and makes us crave more of those types of foods later. And some of us, like you, like me, are more susceptible to this. And there's not
So what's your take on the thin people that could eat garbage like that and it doesn't affect them?
This is why we have to honor the differences in metabolism and the differences in genetics. Weight loss and fat loss certainly is not fair, right? I know I have clients and friends who can seem to be able to eat jelly beans and Pop-Tarts and be able to stay lean. And that has to do with the fact that they are naturally insulin sensitive. They hold on to their muscle mass better. Their brain chemistry is more balanced. I would like to say that eventually it's going to catch up with them in some way, shape, or form, but we have to make allowances for these differences. It is not fair, unfortunately. I wish it was.
Yeah, I guess, everybody's stressed. Not just worry stress, but not sleeping enough, working a lot, texting, driving, whatever.
Texting,
it's
right?
hard, yeah, well, some people do, right?
Okay.
But it's hard to lose weight when you're stressed,
Yes.
right?
And here's an interesting
So
thing,
do you have
Randy,
to get people to mellow out in order for them to lose weight?
We do have to get people to mellow out. And as a matter of fact, sometimes when I'm dealing with my clients, I will even tell them something that shocks them, which is, hey, 1 more hour in bed for you is probably going to be better than 1 more hour on the treadmill for you, because they are so impacted by cortisol and stress versus food. We all know there are stress-based individuals and there are food-based individuals. If you are someone who is a stress-based individual, you really need to start engaging in more rest and recovery activities, which I consider exercise. Things like sauna therapy, massage, meditation, restorative yoga. One of the best ones, by the way, is leisurely walking, not power walking, but leisure walking, especially in nature settings, in parks and things like that, are
Who
wonderful.
has time to leisurely walk these days?
You have to create the
Yeah,
time.
I'm kidding,
and we
I'm kidding.
need to start making time. If you're on the phone texting in your car, then you could text and listen while you're walking. And this
I'm
is gonna
texting. I should
No-
be
no
leisurely
more
walking.
texting and
I should
driving.
be leisurely walking instead of texting while
Well,
driving.
I mean, technological addiction, I think, is a real thing, and then that's driving up our cortisol
Yeah.
levels. And even saying, when you wake up in the morning, right, and you look at your phone and everything is red, we're conditioned to think emergency, and it automatically,
Okay.
it automatically triggers cortisol.
Okay.
But Randy brings up a really good point here, and I know we're all
See?
laughing at this. But here's the interesting here's the interesting thing. We, and Krista and I know you deal with this a lot too, Krista, but we have to, and anyone listening, we have to get to a point where we start to look at ourselves and say, who has time for that? You have to make time for it. Who has time to be sick, overweight, and depressed? If you do not make time for rest and recovery, you are not going to be able to heal from this. It's one of the most difficult things I deal with my clients who are, high-end clients who are working like crazy. They have to slow down. If you're not willing to, then I would say you're going to be fighting an uphill battle.
Exercise less, eat less. Exercise more, eat more.
Well,
That's
now
right.
I love it.
What about, though, I mean, as a clinician, I always want to honor and respect wherever my client is coming from. And so if they are vegan and they're not willing to add animal protein into their diet, I'll suggest certain protein combinations and soaking and sprouting. Or how do you
Soaking
contend
and
with
sprouting?
that?
What do you mean by that?
If you can soak and sprout nuts and
okay.
seeds and legumes, then you'll have more
Okay.
access to the protein. It'll be more bioavailable.
Same approach as you, Krista. Some of the higher protein breads, some of the sprouted breads. Oftentimes, I'm a big fan of using some of the vegan-based protein powders and things like that to get protein in. A lot of people don't like these because they say they're a little bit processed, but most people are eating highly processed food anyway, and these things are highly satiating and do very well. So that's the exact same approach I use. I do feel like when you look at the research, it's very clear that if you want to balance your metabolism with food, you got to be looking at protein, fiber, and water. The one place that vegans and vegetarians have an advantage is that they do, as long as they're not a carbotarian or a starchitarian, they will get plenty of fiber and water from the vegetables and fruits that they're eating. But many of these people are actually starchitarians or carbotarians and not actually vegetarians.
Okay,
And
tell me
that's-
this, by the way, this intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Give me, because
Let's
we only
talk
have a
about
couple
that.
of minutes left, and
And
I'd like to
soy.
know your take.
The research on intermittent fasting, from my perspective,
For those
is
that
very,
don't know what we're talking about, could you please, because I'm not sure, I mean, I've heard it explained different ways. Give us your working definition.
Well, let's go back to the Paleolithic lifestyle will be a guide here. Our ancestors were not guaranteed food every day. So this modern day construct of breakfast, snacks, lunch, and dinner is a modern day construct. It's not something us humans evolved on. We went long periods of time without food, sometimes days, and our metabolism is designed to do that. So intermittent fasting is all about giving longer periods of time between meals to give our body time to become more insulin sensitive and to burn a little bit more fat. And for some people, it works wonderfully. How do you know if it works? By the way, with diet and exercise, you always know if your heck is in check, then it's working for you. And if you're losing fat, it's working for you. Many people can go 16 hours without eating and then get into a place where they get home and they have a salad and they're happy and they go to bed and they sleep great. Others will have their heck thrown completely out of check, can't sleep, and will freebase a cheesecake later that day. That's how you know whether it's working or not.
Yeah. I think that makes perfect sense.
Well, we are, by the way, we are out of time.
We're out of time.
We
We
went
already talked
5
about
minutes. We went 5 minutes
freebasing
over.
soy.
You know, we're going to have you back on the show because we are 5 minutes over right now as it is. But I want to thank you for coming on the program. If somebody wants to work with you, what do they do?
Metaboliceffect.com is my website.
And you're taking on new people?
I am not taking personally right now, but we have online programs on Metabolic Effect where they work virtually with my coaches, and that's sort of like a gateway to work with me.
And there's no quick fix. There's no buried drink or.
I wish there was, Randy, but no magic.
Because I always tell my friends, if there was one, believe me, with my friends and no, I would be taking it.
You
I'd
would.
be all, I'd be all
You're all
over it.
about the panacea.
I've tried every one of them.
So, okay,
Yeah.
before I let you go, we let
30
you go.
seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. You said it before off camera that you were freebasing soy. And I just want to make sure, because we talked about the vegan, that we talk about how soy is so damaging to the thyroid and it throws
Yeah.
off the hormonal piece. And
That's
so,
right.
2 sentences on that. Tell us.
What happened to me is at one point in time I was a vegetarian and I ate so much soy protein that I actually put myself into a hypothyroid state. And I still today am suffering with that. So people have to be careful with soy. It's not the health food we've all been led to believe. Some people can do okay on it. Most people in anything but moderate doses are not going to do too well on it in my clinical experience.
I
Okay, good.
totally agree.
Hey, well,
Jade.
pleasure to see you again after all these years, and thanks for coming on the program. We'll have to have you back to talk about some other things.
You're
Thanks
awesome.
so much, Randy. It's good to see you again as well. And Krista, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jade. Thanks for
You've
being
been
here.
watching the Randy and Krista Show. I'm Randy Alvarez. This is Krista Recchio. This is news that makes you healthier. I wish you good health.